Greetings, my dear dreamers, and most welcome to this newsletter for February 2020. This second month of the year is related to the old Roman festival with the name February, a cleaning and purifying one. Later on it turned into Lupercalia, a festival with the same purpose but with a clear association to wolves, since Lupa was the name of the she-wolf who was suckled by the grounders of Rome, the twin brothers Romulus and Remus. The Lupercalia festival, anyhow, was quite a rough story with blood sacrifices executed by the priest called Luperci, and naked men running with the thongs of the flayed skin of an animal, catching women who were gladly letting themselves be fertilized. Well, talking about weird old ceremonies, it's really worth mentioning February is the fourth Norse winter month called Thorri, personifying the god of the winter and cold. The farmers of olden times were, according to some of the olden sources, said to have welcomed winter as well as its patron god through going outside barefoot in the snow. And here comes the weirdest part. The poor ones were supposed to wear only one leg of their long underpants, while the other was to be dragged behind. And by doing this, Thorri was welcomed to their home. So this gets even more enigmatic because both stories actually have a really peculiar likeness to old tales of werewolves. And I will tell you how, but before doing that, I also want to mention that in the legendary saga of the Volsungs, there is a story of a father and a son finding wolf pelts with the power to turn people into wolves for 10 days. The two of them went through the transformation that led to that the father attacked and lethally injured his son, who only survived because a kind raven who gave the regretful father a leaf filled with healing powers. But why would anyone want to turn into a wolf in the first place? Well, seen through the eyes of a dream interpretation, a wolf represents an instinct, a really into the wild one too. And wanting to become a wolf represents wanting to reclaim an instinct. Wild instincts opposes obedient behavior, and the origin of human instincts comes from the subconscious terrain, which is feminine ground, just like the dark is symbolically seen. Wolves are symbolically connected to the feminine, like dogs are to the masculine. This has to do with the feminine being close to nature, not the least through their hormone cycles and receptiveness, while the masculine is symbolically seen as the patriarchal one, the doer of what has to be done. But since the wolf always had kind of a bad reputation as a cruel killer, that would probably have been the most thinkable reason for those two in the two-story wanting to become wolves. They wanted to be scary and strong, but it hit back just as a good lesson is supposed to do. But most werewolf tales don't really talk about learned lessons. There is only misery and fright. There are always men, not women, as far as I know, who fear the full moon because it will turn them into this beast beyond their control, praying for blood and flesh. And I actually wonder how the story would have gone if there were women in it instead of men. Most probably women would really turn into wolves, not werewolves, and most probably they would gather in packs and reclaim their wilderness in a less painful way. And maybe I am unfair, but since the wolf represents the instinct of adapting to nature and surviving despite difficult circumstances like starvation and severe cold, I don't really see the need of being half human, half wolf. Most possible would be that this werewolf syndrome is to be compared to a transformation only being half done. The helplessness and the anxiety over the waxing moon, coming with fear of hurting the ones you love, are symptoms of feeling left out to a cruel destiny. And cruel destinies have always led to war and violence during the masculine era, then seeking common solution in peace, a clear symptom of that things are out of balance. Even if it looks that way, this has really nothing to do with physically being a man or being a woman. it's absolutely about passive and active counterparts and the fact that both are needed. Doing things on the outside has to have an equivalent on the inside, otherwise it's mere empty rituals. Just like figuring things out on the inside are supposed to be manifested on the outside in order to not stay in a daydreaming form. Think about the term heaven when it comes to religious beliefs. That place isn't to be found no matter how far you reach in a rocket ship, because it's a state of mind. Thinking with only the left side of the brain makes heaven a place of imbecile fantasy and superstition. Such a person thinking that way would just look up at the blue sky and feeling damn right about his or her opinion because there's nothing else to be seen and science hasn't come with any breaking news about it. Now let us look at the likeness between the Norse story of how to welcome Thorri and werewolves. The transformed werewolf is said to run with only 3 legs and the 4th held out straight backwards like a tail, since the werewolf have no tail. Running around with only 1 leg of the underpants on while the other was dragged behind has seemingly the same purpose as holding the leg like a tail. The tail is important to the wolf when it comes to positioning. Looking like having the tail tucked between the legs or under the body would show a submissive position, and that means danger. And thinking about the strength of a werewolf, would actually outclass a wolves even if they attack in packs, making it pretty clear, understanding that the goal is looking like a wolf, not some hybrid between human and wolf. And this takes us back to the masculine wanting to find his instinctual self, but only getting halfway since having banished the feminine power. And the name Thorri leads obviously to the Norse god Thor, and further on back to Zeus and Jupiter. And as said in the latest newsletter for January, the planet Jupiter is quite not at all suitable as the origin of any male god, since it's actually feminine. Kishar, that is the old and Sumerian name for the planet, was the consort of the male Anshar, Saturn. Besides that, a god of winter isn't really fitting into the description of a thunder-striking one. Thunderstorms are not very common in winters. 10 years ago, I had a dream in which I was in a vision shown a god with the name Arkunas, who were connected to the world oak. Then the vision disappeared and I found myself at a crossroads with a post on one of these roads showing different destinations. An old friend of mine came to me and handed over a clipboard with Egyptian gods. One of these gods was unknown to me, and I was trying to get my friend to tell me more about it, but she was in a hurry and also said she didn't remember anything about him. She was just a messenger. I felt that this unknown god was something else, that it had another origin in the dream. I thought to myself about that it could be South American, maybe Peruvian, and I looked at the picture of that very old and picture made the details difficult to discern, and I could see that the god had an animal head, and I tried to decide if it was similar to a dog or a ram. Perhaps it was looking like the old Egyptian deity Khnum. And 3 years later, when I was reading the book Dreaming the Soul Back Home by the excellent author Robert Moss, I stumbled upon what turned out to be the answer to the dream, the Baltic god Parkunas, who speaks through thunder and lightning. This god also turned out to have an oak, a sacred one dedicated to him. And when searching further into Baltic and Prussian myth, I found that Parkunas was to be seen as the synonym for Thor and Zeus and Jovi, the sky father Jupiter. So here we go again, all roads are obviously leading to Rome. But when thinking about the dream again, where I stood at the crossroads, only one of the 2 roads had signs. So what about the other road? Was there a possibility to find something else than the male thunder and lightning gods in the end of it? Knowing that Jupiter initially wasn't at all a male deity, it isn't that hard to figure out that something fishy is going on when Jupiter and Saturn have become one in order to close out every possibility of a feminine presence. As said in the last newsletter, this is very typical for the religious system. And the winter deity Thorri, said to be synonym to those male thunder gods who really are to be seen in mere Saturnian light, was supposed to feel welcomed by a man acting like a werewolf, wanting to look like a wolf. Kind of a dead end, isn't it? So let us walk the other road, without any signs of destination. The dream told about another origin, and truly I had never heard of either the names Perkunas or Arkunas before. So was Perkunas the one I searched for, or was it Arkunas? Perkunas seems to be the typical pinch hitter for the disappeared feminine deity, which with the same epithets, just in the way the ancient Anshar took over his consort's existence in later myths. The usurpation of the feminine is often described as heroic killings of monsters, preferable reptile ones. And one example is the Greek Gorgons, where the most known one was Medusa, whose snake-crowded head was cut off by Perseus. He took off with the head in a sack, chased by Medusa's two angry sisters running after him. The sisters were three in the beginning, and the three-legged symbolism seen in the weird winter ceremonial dressing as well as with the werewolf is actually to be found in the ancient triskelion symbol. It comes from Sicily. At the time, Sicily was a colonial extension of ancient Greek, and it is a symbol for Medusa. It's a picture of a head surrounded by three legs, said to symbolize the snakes in her hair. The god Perkunas has a symbol too, which turned out to be a swastika, which has a certain similarity to the triskelion found in, for example, a beautiful old Baltic swastika brooch with four snakes' heads formed like a swastika picture attached to the written newspaper of these things. And the Perkunas symbol stands for fire as in flashes, symbolizing courage and bravery, while the triskelion tells about Medusa, who had her head cut off. The male was supposed to be a symbol of bravery, while the feminine was supposed to show the subduing. But if now Arkunas was the feminine counterpart or consort of Perkunas, and just as unknown as the fact is that Jupiter is originally considered feminine, the truth is clear about that the slain she-monsters are the feminine, unwanted so-called consorts of the male gods. Finally, the male transformation into a werewolf symbolically represents the distorted way of carrying forth the masculine heritage as the indisputable leader of the world. He can't turn into being a wolf just as a patriarchal deity can't be a matriarchal one at the same time he's hiding and suppressing her. And instead, he turns into a werewolf in panic and without control of himself. The prostrating of male farmers running around in the cold snow barefoot with one pant leg behind like a tail would then more likely have to do with propitiating the goddess. And I think actually that this has its roots in the mythological absence of the Greek harvest goddess Demeter, causing winter to come because searching for her missing daughter, a daughter who had been captured by Hades with the goodwill of her father Zeus, of course. The captured Persephone has furthermore her likeness in the Norse Eden, who was captured by the giant Thjazi, who took her to a shadow world. The giant also has a daughter whose name is Skadi. And all of you who know something about the Norse myth also know that Skadi is seen as the goddess of winter, living in Trimheim, where she could hear the cry of the wolves. The very common thing between humans and wolves in wintry places of old times was starvation, and going out to hunt for food could most likely end up in becoming the prey. Trying to pacify the goddess of winter was therefore all about avoiding extreme cold, which was especially necessary if it had been bad harvest year. I will not go on about this even if I could, but the bottom line is that when the imbalance came into the world, things became really distorted and it has to be put back in the right place again. So let's look at some astrological facts. February 3, Mercury enters Pisces and you will easily tap into subtleties around you. If being a sensitive one, you will do the best with going inwards into your dreamiest place to meditate, paint and pay attention to your dreams. Doing that will come with symbols that help you understand yourself and your surroundings. So inviting your subconscious will be a good thing. This is also a perfect time for tuning into distant messages and inner visions being of much help. Write it all down, and when finding yourself in a difficult position, go back to what could in the first place look like gibberish and find that it is actually the answer of importance. February 9 will bring a Leo full moon, which could be used for strengthening ceremonies for your heart and your blood. Through the rhythmic pulsations of your blood circulation, your heart responds to what takes place in your blood. The Hebrew word nephesh means spirit or soul, meaning that which gives a human life and leaves the body when it dies. In the Bible, the blood is said to be nephesh, meaning blood that has its soul in it, and for that reason may not be shed incorrectly. The Sumerian word Chi-im-ti means breath, wind, life, and becomes translated into Akkadian napishtu. And this nephesh, napishtu points at something in the blood that is of great importance, something sacred, making out the very individual that you are. And this is meant to be responded to by your heart. And therefore you should strengthen this sacred ingredient in yourself. A full moon ceremony is often used for letting go of what no longer has a meaning in your evolving as a human being. But when getting by the first hardships of understanding dualism, it is easy to see that focusing on what is the true importance means letting go of what is no longer helping you grow. So, what is your blood and how do your heart respond on it? Think about it and make a stand in favor to the sacredness in being alive here and now. February 16, Mercury will begin moving retrograde in Pisces, and this could cause some emotional confusion and perhaps also disillusion. Doing your inner work in a creative and receptive way, as described above in the Mercury entering Pisces part, will give you the inner tools needed for dealing with possible deceptiveness. With the right tools available, you could really use the retrograde time to heal old emotional deep buried down wounds, and this will be a perfect thing to do before the Leo full moon too. Working with yourself in a determined way is more important than ever before, since we are in a time of big changes. February 18, the Sun enters Pisces, whose ruler is Pluto, who is also ruling the 8th house of death, dissolution and unboundedness. The old world, as we know, is on its way to dissolve. And we are all capable of deciding how our personal experience of this transformation is to be. This is about being in the 4th dimension, which I have been talking about before in my earlier videos. The 4th dimension means deciding out from your own reactions, emotions and thoughts, and of course your actions, how your reality will be. As you may remember, the 3rd and 4th dimensions have overlapped each other for a time, and the 4th is more and more taking over. This is to be seen in what is going on in the world. in the crazy decisions taken by politicians and the reactions that comes from them. It's like something has begun spinning in a totally wrong direction, and this is the symbolism found in the crossroads in my dreams where only one road has signs. We only know that one way, and to regain balance we have to find out where the other one leads in order to create a reality that isn't made out of fear or hatred. We have to look to that the sacred element in the blood circulating in our bodies is strengthened and emphasized. An important enchant to those of you who have Pluto in Virgo is to be aware of that Pluto brings back what comes from the deepest of depths of emotional kind during this Sun phases month. Pluto is not coming as a distractor into your lives. It comes as a long lost friend carrying that which you have been missing for so long without even knowing it. That part of yourself that has dwelled in the realm of your shadow and has been on its way in a long ascension up to the loving arms of Virgo. Pay extra attention to your not understandable reactions and welcome what is behind them, whatever you will find, because it's a missing piece, a key that will show itself being of importance to you. The same date as the full moon is to be seen in Leo, it's also entering Virgo, who is to be the host of the full phase next month. Sorry. This means the Leo strength in heart and blood will be there with you in your work. So use this month to do a little extra effort for your shadowy things. Embrace yourself in all aspects. And lastly, this February month comes with the numerical value of 6. 2 plus 4, belonging to the Hebrew letter Vav, being symbolized by a nail. And a nail is hard and designed for penetrating materials and holding them together. Its essence is found in the sharp tip of the arrow and brings concepts belonging to the terms of investigation, exploration, and innovation to the understanding. A nail can be an instrument of torture as well as a safety, and the letter Vav is also a letter of passion since it has the numerical value of 6, also belonging to Venus. And Venus is to be found in the Sephiroth Netzach, which means victory for the ones who have won over their dualistic automatic behavior. This kind of victory is yours to win, and is, as said, needed for being able to focus on what is really important and to be able to create from your reality from trust and strength instead of fear and powerlessness. So, dear ones, go now and make of the world a beautiful place. If you want to take part of the monthly offer, you can become a subscriber by filling in your email address in the square at the top of the page at www.emmeyasoleil.com, and then you will receive a monthly newsletter in written form by email. And do also remember to help this channel staying alive during my time working hard with my coming up one online dream course. Please hit the like button and subscribe. Do click that little bell in the right corner on top of the page. As always, you are welcome to contact me on email, emmeyasoleildreamwork@gmail.com. So bless you all, loved ones, and bye for now.